April 1955, Pratt County, Kansas. A wheat farm 12 miles south of the town of Pratt, sitting flat and still on a section road that runs straight as a rifle barrel until it disappears into the sky. The county is holding a public auction on the front lawn at 10 o'clock. Harold Gentry stands at the edge of his own porch in his good boots and watches strangers walk the furrows his father first broke in 1919. 36 years of the same ground under the same family name. Going this morning to the highest hand. His boy Robert is buried in the military cemetery at Leavenworth. Robert has been in that ground since November of 1950. The farm is the last thing Harold Gentry has left that Robert ever touched. At the end of the section road, a dusty station wagon sits on the shoulder with the engine off. A man in a tan Stetson and a canvas jacket leans against the front fender and looks down the drive toward the house. Nobody recognizes him yet. Here is the story. The Gentry place is 280 acres of hard winter wheat ground. Harold's father Edwin broke the first 40 acres himself in 1919 with a walking plow and a mule team. He built the house from a Sears kit and the barn the following spring. Edwin Gentry is buried on a small rise behind the barn. Harold has kept the stone cleared of grass every summer of his adult life without missing a year. He is 61 years old. His hands are wide and stiff at the knuckles from a cold that got into them during the blizzard of 1936, when he worked the ground through 3 days of it because the rent was due. He bought the place outright in 1938, after 20 years of payments, and the deed went up on the kitchen wall the same night he got it. His wife Vera framed it in a piece of pine trim she cut from a scrap in the barn. The frame has always been crooked. He has never straightened it because Vera made it, and Vera died of pneumonia in 1948, and he has not moved a thing she put her hands on. Robert Gentry was born in that house in 1929. He grew up behind a tractor and could back a loaded wheat truck into a space 3 inches wider than the truck itself by the time he was 15. He enlisted 3 days after the North Koreans crossed the 38th parallel. He was 20 years old. He told his father he would be home by Christmas. He shipped to Pusan in August and was dead by November. A shell on a hillside outside the Chosin Reservoir. The Army sent the telegram on a Tuesday. Harold read it at the kitchen table and then went out to the barn and did not come back inside until dark. He is not a man who cries easily, but he did not eat for 3 days, and the neighbors noticed. The loan came after the funeral. The Army sent $250 in death benefits. The headstone cost $180. By December of 1950, Harold was 4 months behind on the equipment note he had taken in the spring. He borrowed $600 from the First National Bank of Pratt to catch up. He paid that back over 3 years, every payment on time. Then the combine threw a bearing in 1953, and the repair was $400, and the wheat price dropped 12 cents a bushel that same harvest, and by October, he was behind again. The bank carried it through the winter, then it stopped carrying it. A man drove out in March of 1955 and sat at Harold's kitchen table and looked at the crooked frame on the wall and explained that the auction would be held in April. There is $4,200 outstanding on the Gentry farm. The land is worth close to $11,000 in a good year. Nobody in Pratt County expects this to be a good year for Harold Gentry. Saturday morning, the cars begin arriving at 8:30. Pickups and old sedans park along the section road and in the grass beside the drive. The neighbors come in their good shirts with their hats in their hands, the way Kansas men come to these things. They do not make noise. A woman from the Methodist church has set a coffee urn on a card table near the fence. Roy Dunbar, the auctioneer out of Pratt, sets up on the tailgate of his truck near the barn. He has run 42 auctions in Pratt County this year. He has stopped counting them the way you stop counting a thing when the count starts to bother you. Beside him stands a man from the First National Bank of Pratt in a brown suit that is too heavy for April. He holds a manila folder against his chest with both arms and does not make eye contact with anyone. Near the stock tank, standing apart, is a land buyer out of Wichita. Heavy man, pale suit. He has bought 16 Pratt County farms this year. He is not nervous. He lifts his coffee cup and looks at the wheat coming up in the south field and does the arithmetic in his head. Harold Gentry comes off the porch at 9:50, his father's canvas jacket, the same hat he has worn to every harvest since 1941. He walks to the edge of the lawn and stops 20 feet from the crowd. He does not join it. He stands with his hands at his sides and his eyes on the barn, the way a man looks at something he is trying to memorize. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. Roy Dunbar opens at 10. He reads the legal description off his papers the way a man reads a thing he wishes were not there. 280 acres, the house, the barn, the equipment shed, the stock tank, all fixed improvements. Mortgage balance $4,200 and change. All right, gentlemen, let's get started. The yard goes quiet. Every man on that lawn has looked at Harold Gentry's south field and done the arithmetic. Every one of them knows what 280 acres of winter wheat ground is worth. Not one of them raises a hand. There is a code out here that does not need to be written down. You do not raise your hand against a Gold Star father on his own lawn, not while he is standing 20 feet away looking at his own barn. It is the oldest rule out here, and nobody ever had to explain it. Roy Dunbar waits. Come on now, good ground, good water. He is talking to the air. The man from Wichita sets his cup down and raises one finger. 4,000. The number lands in the yard like something dropped from a height. 4,000 means the bank collects most of the debt, and the Wichita man gets 280 acres of good Kansas wheat ground for 30 cents on the dollar. It means Harold Gentry gets nothing. It means the wheat coming up in the south field gets cut by a stranger in July. Roy Dunbar looks at the bankman. The bankman looks at his folder. I have 4,000. 4,000 once. Harold Gentry does not move. His eyes have not left the barn. 4,000 twice. Roy lifts his hand for the last call. 8,000. The voice comes from the road. Every head in the yard turns at once. The man in the tan Stetson has not moved from his fender. His hand is up, easy, not urgent, the way a man raises a hand to answer a question he already knows the answer to. He is standing in the full morning sun at the end of the drive, and the light is full behind him. Roy Dunbar squints. Say that again, sir. $8,000. Something moves across the Wichita man's face. He has bought 16 farms this year, and not one of them gave him any trouble. He looks at the tan Stetson and the canvas jacket, and something in the back of his mind begins working at a recognition it has not quite arrived at yet. 9, the Wichita man says. 10. The voice from the road has not changed volume, has not changed speed. The man on the road is not performing anything. He is standing on a gravel shoulder in Pratt County doing arithmetic, and he has already finished doing it. 11. 12. The Wichita man's jaw shifts. He has a number in his head, past which the ground stops making sense, and he is close to it now. 13. That's my number. He says it loud, the way a man says a thing he wants to sound like a choice, rather than a surrender. Roy Dunbar is standing very straight on his tailgate. He has not stood this straight at an auction in 2 years. I have $13,000. He says it into the open air for the 60 people standing in that yard. 13,000 bid from the road. He lifts his hand. 13,000 once. The boy who was pouring coffee has set the pot down. The neighbors have stopped looking at their boots. 13,000 twice. Harold Gentry turns his head. He looks at the man on the road for the first time. He does not know the face yet. He is 61 years old and does not go to the pictures, and he is looking at the man the way you look at something you cannot place. Sold. Roy Dunbar drops his hand. For $13,000. The man comes up the drive. He walks the way a man walks when the decision is behind him, and only the doing of it remains. The neighbors step back without being asked. By the time he reaches Roy Dunbar's truck, half the yard has placed the face, and the other half is being told in low, fast whispers. He goes to the bankman first. Cash. He pulls a long brown leather wallet from inside his jacket. He sets it on the tailgate and opens it, and begins counting $100 bills onto the warm metal. One at a time. Slow. The bills make a flat, soft sound each time they land. He counts to 13 and pushes the stack across. That covers the debt, the back interest, and Roy's fee. He still does not look at the bankman. Whatever is left on that tailgate when you're done goes to Mr. Gentry. Today, before you get in your car. The bankman counts it with fingers that are not entirely steady. He counts it twice. He writes the receipt standing up, using the tailgate for a desk, and the April wind pulls at the paper, and he holds it down with his wrist. He signs it. He slides it across. The man looks at it. Then he turns to Roy Dunbar. "You've got the deed form." "Yes, sir." "Fill it now, right here." Roy gets the form from the cab and spreads it on the tailgate. He fills in the date, the legal description, the sale amount. He gets to the grantee line and stops. "Who do I put here?" The man is looking across the lawn. Harold Gentry is still standing at the edge of his own grass, 20 feet back, holding his hat brim in both hands, watching. "Put Harold Gentry." Roy Dunbar's pen stops. "Sir?" "Harold Gentry. It's his farm. Put his name on the line." He could have kept driving. He has a film starting in Brackettville, Texas in 9 days. He came off Route 54 for gas and heard the auction notice on the Wichita radio station and drove 12 miles down a section road on a Saturday morning. He could have sat on the fender and watched and driven on. He could have bought the ground and kept it. He did not do any of those things. He counted $13,000 onto a stranger's tailgate in front of 60 witnesses and put a stranger's name on the deed. Roy finishes writing. He climbs down from the tailgate and carries the deed across the lawn himself, and every person in that yard watches him walk it the whole distance. He puts it in Harold Gentry's hands. Harold reads it. He reads it again. He reads the name on the grantee line. His hands begin to shake, and he folds them around the paper to hold it still. He looks past Roy at the man by the truck. "Mister." His voice has never been a loud voice. "Mister, I can't accept this. I'm a grown man. I've always paid my own way. I don't know how to take something like this from a stranger." The man walks across the lawn. The crowd opens for him. Up close, he is older than Harold expected, with lines around his eyes from years of squinting into western light. "Your boy, Robert. He served." Harold's chin moves once. "Korea," he says, 1950. He went when they called him. He walked into the recruiting office in Pratt the morning after the news came on the radio, Harold says. He didn't wait for the letter. The man nods slowly. He looks at the deed in Harold's hands, then at the barn, then at the south field with the wheat coming up thin and green in the April light. "Then Robert Gentry already paid for this ground," he says. "He paid more for it than $13,000 will ever be worth." He touches the brim of his Stetson. "This isn't charity and it isn't a loan. Call it what it is. Call it a country that owes a debt it has been very slow to pay. You keep the farm. You bring the wheat in. You drive to Leavenworth on the 1st of November the way you always have. And you tell that boy the place is still standing." Harold Gentry looks down at the deed. He looks at it a long time. The woman from the Methodist church has stepped forward from the crowd. "What's your name?" she says. "I want to know it so I can tell people who did this." The man is already turning toward the road. He lifts one hand, easy, without looking back. Roy Dunbar has had the face placed since the third bill hit the tailgate. Roy Dunbar cannot hold it anymore. "That's John Wayne." He says it to nobody, to everybody, to the 60 people standing in Harold Gentry's yard in the morning light. "Lord, that is John Wayne." The man does not turn around. He raises the same easy hand he raised from the fender, and he keeps walking. He gets into the station wagon and starts it, and pulls off the shoulder and points it south toward Pratt and Wichita and the Texas border. The dust rises behind the wagon and hangs for a moment in the April light. Then the wind takes it, and it is gone. Harold Gentry stands in his yard, on his own ground, the deed in his hands, 60 neighbors around him, and none of them saying anything, because there is nothing to say after a thing like that. He looks down the section road until the wagon is a dark shape on the horizon, then until it is not a shape at all. Then he stands there a little longer after it is gone. Harold Gentry brought the wheat in that July. He cut it himself, the same as every year. The yield was down. It did not matter. There was no note on the ground. No man coming up the section road in a brown suit with a folder on the seat. He drove the grain to the elevator in Pratt and took the check and drove home and put it in the kitchen drawer. He drove to Leavenworth on the 1st of November. He stood at row 14 for 1 hour. He told Robert the farm was still there. He touched the top of the stone the way you touch a thing you want to be sure is still solid. Then he drove home. He farmed the ground for 19 more years. He retired in 1974, at the age of 80. His nephew took over the operation and kept the Gentry name on the mailbox. Harold Gentry died in 1977. He is buried on the rise behind the barn, next to his father Edwin and his wife Vera. John Wayne drove on to Brackettville that April and made his picture. He never once spoke of the farm in Pratt County to a reporter or a writer or anyone whose name appeared in print. Roy Dunbar told the story every year at the Pratt County Farm Bureau dinner until he died in 1971, and that is nearly all of how it ever got out. In the kitchen of the house, above the window that faces the south field, there is a frame on the wall. Inside is the original deed. April 9th, 1955. Harold James Gentry, grantee. At the bottom of the page, in Roy Dunbar's careful hand, is a line he added before he carried it across the yard. He added it without being asked. It reads, "Purchased for the grantee at no charge, no condition, by a buyer who did not leave his name." Beside it on the wall hangs a second frame, crooked, pine trim, hand-cut, nothing inside it. Vera's frame. Harold hung it there the same week the deed went up. The two frames have been side by side ever since. The afternoon light comes through that kitchen window late in the day and crosses both frames slowly, the way light crosses flat ground. It sits on them for a while. Then it moves on down the wall and out past the window. Outside, the south field is still planted every fall. The wheat keeps coming up the same as it always has. If this story reached you, do me a favor. Pass it on. Share it with a veteran in your life. There are more stories coming.